Good morning, Year 6, and welcome to Tuesday, the 23rd of February's literacy lesson. Right, so there's no need to write the date and learning objective because we're just going to carry on after yesterday's work. So you need the Tuesday page and then your Charles Darwin facts from yesterday. So just to remind you of our purpose, so we are going to be producing an encyclopedia page all about Charles Darwin. And that's going to be the first part of our page. So the audience is going to be the parents and the school community, and who are going to look at our work. And so because our audience are these people, our formality, so how we write this text needs to be very formal. We need to make sure that we're using the language, clear language, and that we're explaining our facts so that our audience can understand it easily. And we're going to do this through the text type of a biography. Okay, so a few questions here. What do we know about Darwin so far? So what are his mother and his father called, and where did he study? So have a quick read of your notes from yesterday just to remind yourself of those two things. Pause the video while you do that. Probably should have had. Okay, so his father, I believe, do you know what? I can't even remember. I believe he was called Robert, wasn't he? Yeah, Robert Darwin, and his mother was Susanna Wedgwood. There we go. And where did he study? Well, where didn't he study? He studied at his local boarding school in Shrewsbury, Cambridge, Edinburgh Medical School as well. And then was there one more after that? One more. It went to Shrewsbury School. I don't think there was there? Edinburgh Medical School, Cambridge, yeah. And he didn't like any of it either. He studied a lot of things. Studied at one point to be a priest, but didn't agree with religion. Very, very unusual in those times. Right, so on to today's lesson then. Well, today we're going to research about his work and voyage, and then about his private life. Okay, so underneath, well, probably on two new pages today. I think we'll need an entire page for work and voyage. So put that subheading at the top of the page, and then on the next page write private life. Okay, so yesterday we have video 1. We've got video 1 again today, so it should have been emailed to you. It's on the blog, and it's at the top of your home learning overview. So what I would like you to do after you've written these subheadings is click on this video, and yesterday we went up to 4 minutes and 36. Well, today we're going to go to 4 minutes and 36 and watch the rest of the video about his very famous voyage and his scientific contributions. Okay, pause my video while you're doing that, and while you are watching the other video, make sure that you are taking brief notes, probably about 2 or 3 for each subheading. Right, okay, so we should have had a couple of notes taken from there. So just to remind you then, now we're going to take notes from the rest of our information, so from the trickiest, and I believe it's probably about this point here that you want to be reading from, so the picture of the ship, okay, the HMS Beagle. And that, remember me saying yesterday, they're just very much the basics. Okay, so to research and write a thoroughly researched biography, you will need to read bits of the trickier and trickiest, and then supplement that information with this website that I showed you yesterday as well, if you want to challenge yourself the most. Okay, so we're just going to carry on underneath those two subheadings there, adding to your notes about Charles Darwin's work, his voyage, and his private life. Okay, so these are some of the questions that you will need to answer today. And remember, this is just the basic. These are just the basics. Now, work and voyage is very, very hefty. There's a lot of things that led to his theory of evolution. We're not going to write too much about that this week because we're going to write about that next week. Okay, so these are the questions you need to answer. So what was his job? Where did he go on the voyage? What did he want to learn about? What did he do / learn? What was his voyage like? When did he return? Why did he wait to publish his work? Why did he have to publish his work in the end? And what famous work did he publish? And then for his private life, who did he marry? Did he have children? Where did he live? What did his children do? Spoiler alert. When did he die? And what did people remember him for? Okay, so remember, this is just the basics, and we need to add that extra information from the things that I've shown you. And then just to remind you as well, our notes should be in bullet point form and only take the key information. So where possible, don't copy the whole sentence because you get very tired very quickly, just the important bits. So the example that I gave was the one yesterday. Charles Robert Darwin was born into a wealthy family on February 12th, 1809 in the town of Shrewsbury, England, UK. He was the fifth child of six. Well, so we'd write that as born on February 12th, 1809, Shrewsbury, England, a wealthy family, the fifth child of six. Right, so let's have a look at what he got up to on his voyage, which I am well aware of that I've said differently several times. Right, so when he was at Cambridge, he pursued his natural interests and botany and zoology. So botany is the scientific word for the study of plants, zoology is the study of animals. He was fascinated by different species of beetles, as it explains there. So that's when he started really getting interested in the natural world. It's a good job, really, because he's a very famous naturalist. So as you can see here, this is the voyage that he went on to. And after he finished his degree in 1831, he was offered the position as a naturalist on the HMS Beagle by well, it was one of his friends, John Henslow, informed him about it. John Henslow was a geologist and naturalist at Cambridge, but he turned it down and suggested Darwin go instead. So he spent 5 years aboard the Beagle, setting off from Plymouth, stopping at the Azores, going to Bahia, and all these places. And the Galapagos is amongst the most famous of his stops. Okay, but he went to a lot of different places around the world. Okay, it was a very, very long expedition. Oh, sorry, just lost that. He grasped it with two hands, really. He definitely wanted to go, and he managed to even get his father to pay for him. Okay, so when he was on his voyage, he noticed several things. Specifically, the Galapagos Islands. He noticed the many unusual and unique species there. But all around the world, he collected samples of flora, which are plants, fauna, animals, and different fossils, and looking at rock observation. He observed several rock formations as well. Okay. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought there. So one thing he noticed about the Galapagos Islands, that each separate island seemed to have its own distinct varieties of wildlife. So he noticed in particular the different species on different islands and how they all seem to be very similar, like the tortoises and the birds. But there were different species, and that's when he started to notice these things and put forward evolution. So when he arrived back in 1836, he presented to the scientific community on lots of different fossils and things like that, and he sent these things home as well during his voyage. So by the time that he returned home, when he left, he was very much unknown, but by the time he returned home, lots of people knew about him because of the things that he discovered and the ideas that he was putting forward. And he was asked to write up the observation of the Beagle's expedition, and that's when he put forward some things at the Geological Society in the beginning of 1837, and this is when he presented a specimen of birds that he collected from the Galapagos Islands. And within a week, because obviously there was no internet by then, a famous ornithologist, somebody who studies birds, discovered that he had found 12 new species of finch and a new group of finches. Now, this is what started off a very long chain of events for Darwin to come up with a theory of evolution by natural selection. So that's this next bit. So and this is all about birds. And basically, what he found is that on different islands, finches had changed in different ways. Okay, so on one island, there were like big tough seeds, and the finches on that island had to have massive beaks to break open the seeds. On other islands, the finches had smaller beaks because the seeds and the fruits were softer, and that's what they eat from. This finch here eats blood, so it has like a long needle like beak because it sits on birds' backs and basically sucks blood from them. And it gives you a bit more detail here about when he published this information. But he wrote the first paper, but it was only for him. That was the other important bit. So it was only for him. It wasn't for anyone else. And he wrote that in 1842 and then in 1845. And that's when he said that one original species had been modified into 4 different species here, and that was later proven. So he could have published this by 1839, but he didn't, because he wanted to carry on gathering evidence and assessing specimens, and he got into breeding animals and plants to determine if species could be modified by artificial selection. And he was very into his geology, so he's writing books and papers about that. It wasn't until 1858 when Darwin was contacted by a man called Alfred Wallace, who was a self-trained naturalist, who Wallace asked for an opinion of a paper he had written, which was the theory of evolution by natural selection. So he described the same process as Darwin had discovered, and that is basically what made Darwin publish his findings. And because Darwin was well respected and well known, and all his friends knew that he had arrived at the theory first, the joint theories is often called the joint theories of Darwin and Wallace, and that was presented on July the 1st. And eventually, in 1859, it became a book called On the Origin of Species. Okay, so there's a little bit more information for you to read there, and then a little bit more information about his further work there. Okay, so that's just a very, very brief explanation of his work there. There's obviously a lot more for you to discover, so you need to take those in note form, and make sure you get plenty of detail, because tomorrow we are going to begin writing our biography. Right, we'll look at year 6 and see you tomorrow.